The alien vessel arrived at the far edge of the solar system without a whisper of warning. It appeared suddenly on long-range sensors, an elegant silhouette gliding through the void. It was unlike anything humanity had ever constructed. Human ships tended to look like armored fists, reinforced plating, harsh angles, and the unmistakable presence of brutal functionality. But this ship was art in motion. Its hull curved like flowing liquid metal, reflecting the distant starlight in shimmering waves. It moved with a kind of serene confidence, as though the vacuum of space bent politely out of its path. Aboard the UNS Cerberus, Captain Sarah Volov observed the alien arrival from her command chair. Her own ship hung silent and invisible in the darkness, buried under layers of advanced stealth systems. Not a single spark of heat escaped. No light, no radiation signature. The Cerberus was a ghost. 3 million tons of warship deliberately pretending not to exist. Her communications officer looked up. Captain, they're broadcasting on open frequencies. All of them. They're requesting peaceful dialogue with Earth's leadership. Sarah nodded, expression unreadable. The Cerberus was humanity's shadow blade. The weapon the Alliance didn't list in public fleet numbers. The project no diplomatic treaty ever acknowledged. While Earth showed the galaxy its cruisers and patrol vessels, the stealth dreadnoughts hid in silence, watching, waiting. Record everything, she said. Translate every dialect. If they sneeze, I want a full biological breakdown of the particles. Down on Earth, however, the situation carried a different tone. Within the United Nations Assembly Hall, Ambassador David Chen felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. It wasn't every day that a species discovered it was no longer alone and had to answer politely. Humanity's first message to the unknown visitors was simple and cautious. We acknowledge your request for contact. Welcome to human space. The reply arrived moments later. The translation system rendered the alien voice softly, almost lyrically, with echoes of harmonics humans didn't naturally produce. We are the Zenthari Accord, the voice announced, a union of 7 enlightened species. We come with peace, knowledge, and friendship. Humanity has reached the threshold of the greater galaxy, and we welcome you. Chan felt excitement surge through him. 7 species. A coalition. Proof that the stars were alive with civilizations far older and far more advanced than humanity could have imagined. 3 days later, aboard the Zenthari flagship Harmonious Tide, Chin walked through corridors that felt more like living crystal than machinery. Soft luminescence flowed through the walls. The air smelled faintly of something floral, yet unfamiliar. The Zenthari themselves stood tall and graceful, their skin shifting through iridescent hues like oil gliding across water. Their eyes were too large, their limbs too slender, yet their smiles appeared warm. High Diplomat Vin greeted him with an elegant bow. Humanity is young, Ambassador, Vin said. Young, but promising. Many newly discovered species require guidance as they transition into galactic stage. Guidance, Chin repeated carefully. Something in that word unsettled him. We appreciate your welcome, he replied. But humans value independence. We've learned to stand on our own. Vin's colors rippled faintly. Of course, but the galaxy is dangerous for those who stand alone. The Accord offers protection, safety from threats you have yet to even imagine. Meanwhile, aboard the Cerberus, Sarah observed every word through the encrypted quantum link. Commander Park, her second-in-command, frowned as he listened. They sound friendly, he offered. Too friendly, Sarah muttered. Run a deep analysis. I want to know everything. Political structure, military strength, behavioral history. Anything they've ever called protection. The results arrived 6 hours later. Park looked shaken as he handed her the report. Captain, every species under Accord protection has surrendered its military, its sovereignty, its right to self-govern. The Zenthari control everything. Sarah exhaled slowly. So it's not protection, she said. It's ownership, polite, polished ownership. And they think we're weak, Park added. They've only seen our public ships. They don't know about the defense fleet. They don't know about us. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we stay hidden until we choose not to. The negotiations with the Zenthri dragged on for the next 7 days, long, intense, and increasingly unsettling. Every time Ambassador Chun and his team tried to clarify what protection meant, the Zenthri sidestepped the question with poetic phrases and gentle smiles. Their charm was almost weapon-like in its precision, yet the more Chun listened, the more the cold weight in his stomach grew, because every concession the Zenthri suggested felt like a velvet-wrapped chain. Back aboard the Cerberus, Captain Sarah Vlov monitored every diplomatic session. She and her crew had slept only in scattered fragments. Their intel systems combed through thousands of alien transmissions, cultural references, and ship movement patterns. By day 7, the picture became clear. This wasn't diplomacy. It was scouting. "They're sending more ships," Park reported, pointing at the tactical hollow. Red blips appeared across the outer system. "They claim these are support vessels. But, Captain, those are warships. They're positioned themselves around Mars, Europa, Titan, our main colonies." Sarah leaned forward. "They're mapping our defenses, counting how many ships we have, preparing for leverage." Park nodded grimly. "They think we're too blind to notice." "They're wrong." The ultimatum. On the 8th day, High Diplomat Vin summoned Chun for what he called a formal offer. Chun and his team entered the harmonious Tides Grand Hall, expecting some kind of ceremonial diplomacy. Instead, they got a trap wrapped in courtesy. "Ambassador Chun," Vin began, his voice less musical now, more crisp, almost stern. "The Accord offers humanity a place among us, as a protected species. You will receive technology, peace, cultural uplift, and complete security. And what will we be giving up?" Chun asked bluntly. Vin's eyes glimmered. "Only what you no longer need. Independent military capabilities. Unrestricted expansion. Certain decision-making freedoms." Chun stared. "And if we say no?" Vin's chromatic skin dimmed. "Then you will face a lonely path. Economic isolation, restricted travel, and the reality that the galaxy is unkind to the unprotected." "That sounds like a threat." "That sounds like reality," Vin replied. Chen's pulse quickened. This was no alliance. It was coercion dressed up as diplomacy. He kept his voice steady. "I need to consult with Earth." "You have 12 hours, Vin said. "Use them wisely." Secrets revealed. Back on the Cerberus, Sarah received new intel. "Captain," Park called out, "you need to see this." A hologram flickered to life. Classified Zenthri communications they decrypted. The truth was worse than expected. Every protected species had been forced into compliance. Blockades, crushed economies, technological suppression, peace through dominance, safety through obedience. A species called the Venta had refused protection 50 years ago. The result? Starvation, infrastructure collapse, surrender. Chen had barely finished reviewing the same intel aboard the human diplomatic vessel Olive Branch when Lieutenant Kim burst into his quarters. "Sir, this is critical. We cracked more transmissions. The protected species didn't volunteer. They were pressured until they broke." Chen's throat tightened. "So the Accord is just an empire in prettier clothing." "Worse," Kim said. "They're accelerating their timetable. They've begun disabling our communications. The trap springs." Sarah's dread deepened as she watched the system-wide map. More Zenthri ships arrived. More blockading positions tightened. Then the alert flashed. The Olive Branch just lost engine power. Park shouted, "Zenthri tech, surgical precision, EMP strike. Non-lethal but total control." Sarah clenched her fists. "They're making their move." A tone sounded again, another emergency feed. A civilian ship, Prosperity, mining vessel, attempting to flee Jupiter sector. Zenthri ordered them to stop. They refused. They're trying to break the blockade. Sarah's eyes snapped to the tactical view. The tiny mining ship pushes engines to max, trying to outrun a predator. Behind it, a Zenthri warship aligned weapons. "They're charging up weapons," Park said. "They'll fire any second." Sarah froze. This was the line. If she acted, she would reveal the Cerberus, ending stealth secrecy forever. If she stayed hidden, 47 civilians would die. Her decision came sharp and fierce. All hands, battle stations. Drop stealth. Charge weapons. The Cerberus groaned as power surged through systems that had slept silent for months. The dark silhouette of humanity's most powerful warship ignited like a waking giant. "Open a channel," she ordered. Her voice, when she spoke, could crack steel. "Zenthri vessel. This is Captain Saravolov of the United Nations starship Cerberus. Step away from that civilian ship. This is your only warning." Fleet leader Kresh of the Zenthri Accord had been savoring what he believed would be an effortless day. The humans were behaving exactly as predicted. Scattered, naive, intimidated by the mere presence of Accord warships. Their colonies offered no organized resistance. Their patrol vessels obeyed instructions with predictable fear. Now a small mining vessel, the Prosperity, dared to run. "It seems the humans still have a few stubborn sparks left," Kresh said dryly as he watched the little ship flee across his command screen. "Target their engines. Disable the vessel. Keep the crew alive. We'll use them as a warning." His tactical officer nodded, weapons charging. The Zenthri had done this dozens of times with other species. A display of controlled violence. A message: obey or suffer gently until you surrender. Kresh felt no malice. To him, it was procedure. Then everything changed in an instant. His sensor officer shrieked. "Fleet leader, new contact." Massive energy surge. Directly between us and the human ship. Kresh turned sharply. A colossal shadow had materialized in the void where nothing had been seconds before. "Impossible," he whispered. The ship ahead dwarfed his own warship. It dwarfed every ship in his fleet. Its hull was angular and predatory, plated with armor that swallowed light rather than reflected it. No insignia. No emissions until now. Just a titanic silhouette rising out of nothing, as though reality itself had been hiding it. "What is that?" Kresh breathed. The answer came before his sensors could even stabilize. A human voice. Female. Cold enough to freeze the air in his lungs. "Zenthri vessel. This is Captain Saravolov of the United Nations starship Cerberus. Stand down. Step away from the civilian ship. This is your only warning." The bridge of Kresh's ship fell silent. Every crew member felt the weight of that voice. Even Kresh. But fear was not an emotion he allowed to surface. "This is Fleet Leader Kresh," he snapped in response. "You are interfering with Accord jurisdiction. You will stand down immediately or be destroyed." The monstrous human vessel did not move. No evasive maneuvering. No diplomatic reply. Just a quiet, terrifying stillness. Kresh slammed all four hands on the console. "All ships, target that vessel. Fire at will." 12 Zenthri warships launched everything they had. Plasma streaks, particle beams, missile volleys. The Cerberus lit up in a cage of destructive firepower. For a moment, Kresh felt vindication, until the reading stabilized. "Fleet leader, all enemy shields remain intact. No structural damage. No fluctuation." The voice of the sensor officer trembled. Kresh's blood ran cold. The Cerberus had taken the full barrage, as if someone had tossed pebbles at a mountain. Then the human ship responded. The Cerberus awakens. Aboard the Cerberus. Saravolov watched the Zenthri onslaught splash harmlessly across her shields. The deck plates vibrated softly, more from her crew's adrenaline than the enemy barrage. Shields at 98%. Her tactical officer reported calmly. "We're barely warming up." "Return fire," Sarah ordered. "Disable weapons and engines. No kills unless absolutely necessary." The Cerberus answered with a storm. Railguns thundered. Tungsten rods accelerated to near-light velocity, punched through Zenthri shields like glass. 3 warships lost entire weapon arrays in seconds. Point defense lasers shredded every incoming missile. Particle beams cut across enemy hulls with surgical precision, disabling rather than annihilating. Then Sarah gave the next command. "Pulse EMP, widespread." An invisible wave rippled outward. 3 Zenthri ships went silent instantly, their systems collapsing, drift beginning. Kresh stared at his screens in shock. This wasn't combat. This was dismantling. The human ship hadn't even moved. The flagship falls. Target the flagship, Sarah said, her tone like carved stone. Show them the difference between intimidation and capability. The Cerberus unleashed everything from its forward section: railguns, plasma cannons, particle beams, smart missiles guided by AI. Kresh's flagship buckled under the assault. Shields collapsed. Armor superheated. Decks ruptured. Sparks and smoke filled the Zenthri bridge as Kresh floated in the sudden loss of gravity, lights dimming, alarms screaming. He knew with perfect clarity. The Accord had made a catastrophic mistake. Humans were not weak. They had been hiding. His remaining ships were crippled or fleeing. A voice crackled through the failing comms. Captain Saravolov again. Fleet Leader Kresh. Transmit the following to all Zenthri forces. You have 1 hour to vacate human space. Any vessel that remains will be destroyed. There will be no second warning. Kresh swallowed what was left of his pride. Understood. The Zenthri fled. The galaxy would soon learn why. The Zenthri retreat rippled across the solar system like a shockwave. Within minutes of Kresh's broken transmission, every Zenthri vessel began turning away from human space. Some limped on damaged engines. Others activated emergency jumps, abandoning formation, abandoning protocol, abandoning pride. Aboard the Cerberus, the bridge remained silent as the red enemy markers slowly faded off the tactical map. Commander Park exhaled shakily. Captain, we're receiving broad-spectrum transmissions. Every Zenthri ship is withdrawing. A murmur spread across the crew. They had done it. A single human Dreadnought had shattered an alien strike force. Saravolov didn't smile. Not yet. Good, she said quietly. Let them run, and let them tell their leaders exactly what they saw. Park hesitated. What about the other Dreadnoughts? Should we keep them concealed? Sarah shook her head. No, it's time. The Ghost Fleet reveals itself. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden guardians decloaked one by one. Near Earth, a massive shadow broke through the void, another stealth dreadnought shimmering into visibility. In the asteroid belt, 2 more emerged from the darkness like leviathans rising from deep water. Around Mars, Europa, Titan, ships the Zenthri had never detected now blaze into view. 14 dreadnoughts in total. And behind them, entire squadrons of cruisers, destroyers, carriers, strike craft, hundreds of vessels, all silently watching the Zenthri's retreat. The galaxy's greatest secret was no longer a secret. The Cerberus lead the formation, its black armor gleaming like a warning carved into the night. Park looked at the display, awe in his eyes. We've kept this secret for decades, and today we just showed the galaxy everything. Sarah nodded. Our existence was never meant to intimidate. She paused. But now it will serve as a reminder. Diplomacy redefined. Meanwhile, aboard the Harmonious Tide, High Diplomat Vin watched the recordings in horrified disbelief. 1 dreadnought had crushed Kresh's entire battle group in minutes. 14 more had been revealed, and based on the sensor echoes, there were likely even more under construction. Humanity, a species the Accord had labeled young, weak, inexperienced, had been preparing for war in absolute silence. Worse, they had been studying the Accord for years. Watching, waiting. Vin's comm panel illuminated. Ambassador Chen appeared, no longer the cautious diplomat Vin had spoken to days earlier. Chen's posture was firm, his tone sharp. Hi, Diplomat Vin. Let's be clear. Humanity does not kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone. Vin tried to respond, but Chen cut him off. You promised us protection. What you offered was submission. The galaxy may fear you, but Earth does not. Vin's colors shifted into unreadable patterns. You have deceived us. We were cautious, Chen corrected. Given your history, we were right to be. Chen leaned in. So here's our answer. You will release our vessel. You will leave our system. And you will tell your Accord that humanity will never accept chains, no matter how beautifully decorated. Vin hesitated. The Accord will not tolerate this. You have humiliated us. Chen smiled faintly. Then consider a new strategy. Learn from it. The channel closed. Panic in the Accord. On the Zenthri homeworld, The High Council convened an emergency session. The chamber buzzed with fear and outrage. Supreme Counselor Thane slammed his four hands onto the table. Explain to me how a single human vessel destroyed our fleet. Explain how they had 14 dreadnoughts from our sensors. Fleet Commander Vess delivered the bitter truth. The humans possess stealth technology far beyond ours. Shielding, weaponry, propulsion, everything they showed is decades ahead of our projections. Then update the projections. Thane roared. Counselor Mira, one of the so-called protected species, spoke timidly at first. Perhaps the problem is not merely technology. Perhaps we have grown complacent. The council stared at her. Mira continued, finding strength in her words. For centuries we have controlled others through fear. The humans did something none of us expected. They refused, completely, publicly, and now the species under our protection are questioning us. Vess added reluctantly, our intelligence reports that 3 protected species have already begun secret discussions about independence. Thane's skin darkened with rage. If the protected species rebel, Mira interrupted, then maybe we should stop calling them protected and start calling them allies. The chamber fell silent. The world the Zenthari knew was ending because one human captain refused to let civilians die. 3 weeks after the battle that rewrote humanity's place in the galaxy, Ambassador David Chin stood inside the newly constructed Unity Station, a diplomatic hub floating in neutral space, precisely between human and Zenthari territories. It was Earth's idea, a place where diplomacy would replace the shadows of intimidation. Through the wide observation windows, a sleek Zenthari shuttle approached the station. Chin already knew who was inside. High Diplomat Vin. But this time, he wasn't coming to deliver an ultimatum. He was coming to negotiate survival. Lieutenant Kim stood beside Chun, arms folded. Do you think they'll accept the terms? She asked. Chun sighed. They don't have many alternatives. Kim nodded. 3 of their protected species have already declared independence. 2 more are asking for military support from us. Exactly, Chin said. The Accord isn't collapsing because of us. It's collapsing because their entire system was built on fear, and fear only lasts until someone stands up. The shuttle docked. The airlock opened. Vin entered slowly, his colors dimmer, his steps less confident. For the first time since Chin met him, Vin looked humbled. Ambassador Chun, Vin said, inclining his head. Thank you for meeting me. Chin offered a polite nod. We hope this will be a productive discussion. Our goal is peace, not dominance. Vin's colors shifted into a pattern Chin recognized as weary honesty. Your species has changed everything, Vin admitted. You shattered our fleet, exposed our illusions, and inspired rebellion among those we once guided. Controlled, Chin corrected calmly. Vin did not argue. The galaxy turns. Inside the negotiation chamber, both diplomats sat without guards or weapons. Just 2 leaders trying to prevent a wider war. Vin exhaled slowly. The Accord cannot survive as it was. Our protected species demand autonomy. Some threaten secession. Others accuse us of oppression. Chin didn't soften his tone. They're not wrong. Vin's eyes lowered. No, they aren't. We became something we never intended. Protection turned into authority. Authority turned into control. Control turned into fear. And fear, Chin said, was your foundation. Vin nodded. And now fear is collapsing beneath us. Chin opened his datapad, displaying a treaty draft. This is our proposal. A new galactic coalition. One where species join by choice, not coercion. Trade, defense, technology, diplomacy, but no forced subservience. Vin studied the document for a long time. This is unlike anything the Accord has attempted, he whispered. That's why it might work, Chin said. Vin looked up, hope glimmering faintly. Ambassador, will humanity help us fix what we broke? Chin folded his hands. We already started. The Free Species Coalition. 6 months later, Unity Station transformed from a diplomatic outpost into the beating heart of a new political movement. Representatives from 8 species gathered around a circular chamber. 5 of them former Zenthari subjects, finally free to speak without fear. It was the first session of what would soon be called the Free Species Coalition. Chun took his seat as humanity's lead representative. Beside him sat Captain, now Admiral, Sarah Volov, her uniform crisp, her expression serious. She leaned in. I still don't know why I'm here instead of on the Cerberus. Because you're not just a captain anymore, Chin said. You're a symbol. Sarah groaned quietly. I hate being a symbol. You get used to it, Chin said lightly. Across the room, Prime Minister Kellen of the Venta stood to speak. For 5 decades, my people lived under what the Zenthri called protection, Kellen began. They took our defenses, our sovereignty, our choices. We accepted it because we feared the alternative. He paused and stared directly at the human representatives. But when humanity refused to kneel, we realized we could stand too. A ripple of approval swept the chamber. Then Vin rose, and the room fell silent. My people owe the galaxy a debt, Vin began. For too long we used fear as a tool. Now fear has been turned against us. Today, I stand here not as a ruler, but as a partner. He bowed his head. The Zenthri Accord petitions to join this coalition as an equal, no protected species, no enforced hierarchy. Gasps, whispers. Chin stepped forward. The coalition accepts your request, he declared. But this time there will be no masters, only allies. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in its history, the Zenthri became equals instead of overlords. 2 years passed after humanity revealed the Cerberus and shattered the Zenthri blockade. In that short span, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had anticipated. The Free Species Coalition, once a fragile idea discussed in private conference rooms, had grown into an alliance of 23 member species. Former enslaved nations regained their sovereignty. Old rivalries cooled beneath new diplomatic agreements. Trade, technology, and shared knowledge began flowing freely between worlds once isolated and terrified. And humanity, once considered the young species, now stood at the center of it all. A galaxy united for now. Fleet Admiral Sarah Volov stood on the observation deck of the UNS Cerberus, her flagship and still the most feared vessel in known space. Below her, the hangar bustled with movement. Crew members, engineers, and officers from 6 species worked side by side. A young officer approached, clearly nervous. Admiral Volov, he said, his voice cracking slightly. I'm Ensign Marcus Chun. Ambassador Chun is my uncle. It's an honor to serve under you. Sarah cracked a small smile. The honor's mine, Ensign. Your uncle and I survived some interesting times together. Marcus straightened his posture. I hope to live up to the standard you both set. You will, Sarah said confidently. That's why you're here. As the ensign left, Sarah turned back toward the stars. For the first time in centuries, a corner of the galaxy felt stable, peaceful, united. But peace never lasted. Not out here. Threat at the edge of the galaxy. Unity Station sent an urgent summons. Inside the main diplomatic chamber, Ambassador Chin stood with representatives from 7 species when Lieutenant Kim rushed in. Ambassador, she said breathlessly, we've received a transmission from a far galactic rim, from a species called the Torvac Empire. Chin frowned. Torvac? I've never heard of them. No one has, Kim replied, but they're asking for help, begging for it. Something called the Kryn Swarm is advancing into their space. The room fell silent. Kryn Swarm. Even the name felt like a warning. Chin looked at the projections, grainy images of colossal hive-like ships advancing across Torvac territory, leaving only destruction behind. Entire colonies consumed. Fleets overwhelmed. Communications cut off. They want to join the coalition? Chin asked. Kim nodded. They're offering resources, tactical maps, even territory. Anything will defend them. Prime Minister Kellen of Vena spoke up. If the swarm is half as dangerous as they claim, ignoring them could bring that threat right to our borders. Zenthri diplomat Vin added softly. We once believed ourselves untouchable. Then humanity proved otherwise. If we turn our backs on the Torvac, we risk repeating our own arrogance. Chin looked at them all, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. Prepare, fleet, he said. We don't abandon those who stand alone. The coalition goes to war. 3 weeks later, Unity Station's main hangar shook as a multi-species armada assembled, the largest fleet the coalition had ever deployed. 40 ships, 6 species represented, all converging under one banner. Humanity provided the backbone. 12 dreadnoughts, including the Cerberus, stealth cruisers, carrier groups, long-range battleships, and hundreds of fighters. The Zenthri contributed their finest cruisers, now upgraded with shared tech. The Venta deployed their newly rebuilt destroyer wings. Other species added their fastest scouts, their heaviest frigates, even experimental support craft. For the first time in history, a fleet of free species acted as one, aboard the Cerberus. Commander Park stood at Sarah's side. "All ships report ready, Admiral," he said. "FTL drives charged." Sarah placed her hand on the command rail. This was no longer about humanity, no longer about proving anything to bullies or empires. This was about building a galaxy where no species had to kneel alone. "Transmit to the fleet," Sarah said. Her voice carried across the coalition armada. "This is Admiral Vulov. We jump in formation. We protect the Torvac. We stand against the Kryn swarm. And we show the galaxy what unity can accomplish. Engage, FTL." The stars stretched into brilliant lines as dozens of ships leapt forward in perfect synchronization. The first true fleet of the Free Species Coalition. And it would not be their last.